Right, how's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome to another stream. It's become a bit of a tradition this season that I do a stream when it is the international break. It just offers something a bit different, really, to be able to interact with everyone. And yeah, we're back. We've got Glenn and Elliot today. How you guys doing?
Yeah, I'll start. I'm good. I'm really missing football. The football that's on at the moment. I keep saying international breaks when we went in the Premier League were actually bearable. Now bring back the Premier League. Can't wait. At least the cup Saturday and then next week. Bring it back. Missing it.
I've been watching tram bowling.
Right.
It exists.
Well, that says a lot.
What instead?
Yeah, we started early, haven't we? There's a European festival that does tram bowling, so I've been watching that. So it's basically a tram hitting an inflatable ball near inflatable skittles. So that's what I've been doing for the international break. Glad you guys have fun.
Sums up the international break, really, doesn't it? That we'll touch on our lads playing for their countries. Actually, we might as well get into that. But this show really is just a general roundup. But the rest of the season, obviously, there's so much to play for. I think that's an understatement. Potential European football is something I think we all are fully behind now. And obviously, a possible trip to Wembley would be something very special. So we'll talk about all that and the ins and outs of it throughout this show. And yeah, please, everyone who's here, get your comments in, so we can interact with you as well. You pose some questions to us as well. That would be good. But yeah, of course, international break, it's still on. But from our point of view, England have finished. And I think we've got to talk about this because obviously Morgan Gibbs-White was in the England team and he wasn't involved. He was left out the squad. Then he was called up late and he wasn't in the match day squad for the first game. Then he was on the bench in the last game and didn't come on. And, it's seen quite a lot of opinions. I mean, I think it's a bit ridiculous in a way that he didn't play. I think there's lots of ways you can look at it. It's probably good that he hasn't in a way from a Fives point of view. But I'm just curious, what are your guys' takes on it? Glenn, what do you think of that whole saga?
Being at Ipswich a couple of weekends ago, and obviously being part of that group that were cheering and chanting England's number 10, and then seeing whether he knew or not. Yeah. Obviously, we did hear that he found out on the Sunday, so that would obviously have been the day after, and it must have been a really difficult situation for him. So he may well have organised something else to do, and then obviously he's getting his way over to St James's Park. But to the training ground to meet up with the other guys the following day. Obviously, it's the Christmas has come early feeling, right? He's obviously got himself back into an England squad on merit, quite rightly. Whether there is on the basis of there being an error or a massive media onslaught from the decision that was made, or it was simply because there was an injury and he was the next one up. The situation is for him, obviously he's gone. Whether he was told on the phone call, come and train with us, we'll see how we get on. Obviously there's other players. Am I right in thinking that the last time he was involved in the England squad, Bellingham wasn't, which is partly the reason why he was called up into that role. Obviously Bellingham's now involved. So that the situation is that other players have come back in and he's now perhaps down the pecking order. It was disappointing not to see him feature at all. Obviously, would have been his Wembley debut, wouldn't it, for in an England shirt?
Yeah.
But obviously, he's now putting our Forest cap back on in a situation where he's only been training with the England squad, by all accounts, doing really well. Saw some fantastic video and photographs of him looking like he's really fit and ready to prove that he is on, a starting or at least a bench player. But for us now, we've got a situation where he hasn't played and he's going to be ready and rearing to go, whether it be Saturday. No doubt we'll talk about the squad and the choices for Saturday, and then again Tuesday the week. This time next week, we'll be playing against United, won't we? So it's a blessing in disguise to a certain extent in terms of us. But yeah, no doubt he's gone hoping that he'll get a little bit more of a flavour than he did under Lee Carsley. Obviously, he made a massive impact, and then he didn't really feature at all, other than going and training with the better players in the national squad. Which, if you look at that, is a fantastic position to be in for him. He's going to go and put himself up against the best other English players in his division. Obviously, that will be a massive thing for him. Disappointed though he didn't feature, but for us, not a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think you're right. I think Bellingham did miss a camp earlier in the season, and Morgan was involved. But yeah, it's frustrating. I mean, you see someone so talented, and it's not even really being biased. You just look at Gibbs White, and it's just quite baffling that he couldn't get a chance in either game, especially when we were playing ultimately weaker teams than us. It was, and then you see Jordan Henderson come on, which is obviously another topic. But yeah, it's just a bit of a puzzle, really, that one. I mean, a lot of people are getting their opinions in the chat. Raddad saying, I'm sure Gibbs White will get a start in the future. It probably will do. Kel's less sure about it. But I think a lot of people can have their opinions, aren't they? I'll get your take in a minute, Ellie. I'm just saying hello to people. We've got Tom in the chat. Saw Toby. Obviously, can't say it on here, but they're my membership emotes. So if you want to become a member, then please do that. But yeah, enough of that waffling. Elliot, have you got anything to add on this whole Gibbs White saga?
I think the main thing Thomas Tuchel actually wanted was to get 3 points in both of those games, and obviously he got that. So nobody can really complain about the team. Granted it was Latvia and another team which I've completely forgotten about who we played on Friday, but it was disappointing for Morgan not to be there, considering the fact that he put on Marcus Rashford and Phil Foden, who did nothing either. So you pick players who are just absolutely banging form. And from watching Morgan Gibbs White, he did deserve to get a few minutes, but at the same time, it sort of benefits us in a way because he's rested and ready to go for the Saturday game and the Tuesday game coming up.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's something me and Glenn were talking about just before we came on. Obviously, it's quite a short turnaround. The FA Cup game this weekend, which we can talk about, obviously. Then the United game in a week's time. That's obviously a big game for us. But I mean, Toby's mentioned in the chat about Chris Wood's injury or possible injury, and obviously speaking about the internationals, he did pick up a injury for New Zealand, who did qualify for the World Cup. So that's great to see him hopefully go to a World Cup, because he did go to one when he was a much younger player. I think the 2010 World Cup, he went to that, believe it or not. But it does look like he could be all right. There was an interview where Wood himself was talking about it, and he just said, I think it's more of a precaution. But was a bit of a concern, wasn't it, hearing that he might be out, because we've been saying all season, what if anything happens to Wood, we might be in trouble. And, I can't lie, I did think that to a point. Only I hoped for the best, and it looks like he could be okay. What's your take on that, Glenn? Are you concerned about this news, or do you think he'll pull through?
Yeah, it's always concerning, isn't it, when your leading scorer has a knock in a in a game that's halfway around the world, 6 or 7 days before an FA Cup quarter final, and or resting for that in terms of another game against United at our place. What I am encouraged by, I think, is that it didn't seem to be too serious. I've seen people have horrendous knee injuries, rupturing all sorts, and walk off the field only then to have a scan. So Nuno obviously won't be answering questions about this yet because he's still underneath the New Zealand national team, and they won't be able to scan it and then share that information necessarily with Forest straight away. But I do hope, and I'm encouraged, as I said, by the fact that he was on the field at the end of the game. He was sharing with the celebrations. He seemed to be able to move around and walk. I haven't seen much of the actual incident beyond the small amount of clips and stuff that's around, but it looked relatively innocuous. And by the sounds of it, that he was taken off, like you said, Rads, as a precaution rather than it being something that's, no stretchers involved. And, there was obviously the game was being won or was won at the time. So he wasn't necessarily pushed back out there and continued to run it off or whatever, which obviously would have made it worse. So as soon as that issue happened, he was taken off, which is good. Now, knowing I've got a knee injury at the moment, it's a pain in the butt and it takes forever to get back to, to fitness. They are supreme athletes, and no doubt they've got the best possible people around them. I don't think, and we'll look at this obviously later when it comes to the Brighton starting 11, I don't think he was necessarily going to feature that much on Saturday. So it does give him a little bit more time. From the day of the issue, I think it's something like 9-10 days. Obviously, the flight back from where he was would feature as well. So to answer your question, it's a concern because we don't know what the actual situation is. And once they've scanned it, they may find other things. But there's no player that's 100% fit. And we do want to make sure that he's as fit as possible. We are playing really well at the moment. He's not necessarily scoring that much at the moment. I saw that shot that dribbled towards the keeper, not really struck very well at Ipswich, and we managed to score 4 on that day. So I'm more encouraged by the fact that he's not severely injured and that there are other players around him that are scoring and stepping up to replace. So I think Tyro will start on Saturday just as a sneak. But yeah, we wish him all the best, and we do hope he's not any long-term injury because we don't want that at all.
Yeah. Definitely. And like you say there, I think it's good that we have seen recently more players getting involved. Alanga stepping up big time against Ipswich, Milenkovic even getting a few goals. Jota obviously scored in the last game. So it's good. And obviously Hudson-Odoi against City. So it's good that we've got goals from other sources, but just want to hope that Wood's all right. Do you agree with that, Elliot? Obviously, the whole striker situation has been a big topic this season.
I do agree on that, but there is always a solution to everything this season, in my personal opinion, and that solution is Taiwo Awoniyi. If you can remember 2 seasons ago when he came back in the spring, he was fit and firing. He pretty much kept us in the league. So we actually do have a very good replacement in Chris Wood if he is injured. And yeah, as Glenn said, we've got other players as well that are now mucking in goal wise. So yeah, I'll echo everything Glenn said, but also not to worry, everyone, because we do have an excellent striker in Taiwo Awoniyi as well. That although a lot of people will say that, oh my God, he keeps getting injured, he's made of biscuits, etc. He's actually been fit more or less all season to be on the bench for us. But obviously, of course, the Exeter game, he unfortunately got his nose done in, and that wasn't his fault at all. So it probably is now the opportunity for Taiwo to shine, in my opinion.
Yeah. And that's the thing with the one. Obviously, his awful injury look. He's had a number of big injuries ever since he's been with us. And then when he's behind Chris Wood, who's one of the best strikers in the league this season, form of his life, it is hard for him to really have anything like what he had before. I think the criticism probably comes from when he does play, he's has kind of struggled to get in games. But I do also agree that we have seen glimpses of that old player in there. So let's hope that if Taiwo can step up, if we need him to, and we're going to need him to, I'm sure. So we've already touched on it there. Of course, the Brighton game is a big focus for us now. Chance to get to the FA Cup semi-finals, which would be incredibly special. Trip to Wembley. I'm not sure do you agree with the fact that Wembley is the host for a semi-final, or is it just a chance to go to Wembley? I'm just putting that one out there.
Do you mind if I start this one, Glenn?
Yeah, go.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've always found the semi-final at Wembley very controversial because, obviously, of course, the Sky 6 cartel has dominated the semi-finals over the years, and you've seen like rows and rows of empty seats at Wembley for the semi-final, but they'll all turn up to the final. And it was nice to see Coventry in it last season because they made an absolute great atmosphere at the semi-final against Manchester United. It's a controversial one. I'd probably say if it were semi-finals, maybe have like a neutral ground like it was in the old days, either at like a bigger stadium, even at the Millennium Stadium in Cardiff. I wouldn't mind like going there for a semi-final because Cardiff is obviously a very nice city, but it's controversial, but it's been seeming to work for the FA Cup a lot over the years. So I'm tied with it. I'd rather it not be, but at the same time, I can see why it's the case that a semi-final is played at Wembley.
Yeah. What do you think then to that?
Yeah, I've got a little bit of I'm a half full kind of guy, right? I'm relatively positive.
Bit like Manchester City.
I can see reasons why. You what? Sorry?
Half full like Manchester City in the semi-final.
Yeah. What I can see is obviously there was a call for Wembley to be used more often because at one point the FA was still paying it back, and now it's all sorted. I don't think, as a Forest fan who went, and I'm one of these guys who went several times in the 90s as a late teenager to see in the old Wembley, and was delighted to see the playoff final there. What is it now? 3 years ago, nearly. Any Forest fan, you say, do you want a trip to Wembley to watch Forest? Yes, please. I will happily go. It's about 8 miles that way, and I'll happily go there. Whatever. Now, because I'm in South East London. Now, because I'm equally the 91 Cup final. We had the semi-final, didn't we, at Villa Park? And there was a really special atmosphere on those days where it wasn't at Wembley, and Wembley being that pinnacle, the final, where that the two finalists from the two halves of the draw, etc. Now I do see why some people go, why can't it be elsewhere? And there are enough really fabulous, not comparable, sized grounds around the country. There's not really until Villa Park grows its capacity to something anywhere near the region of what Wembley is. So I can see why it's at Wembley, because it just affords so many more fans to go and watch their team in a semi-final at Wembley. And had it been at Hillsborough or Anfield or Old Trafford or any like that, I think it would take some of the gloss off of it. But equally, I want to see as many Forest fans there as possible in that whole half of red with Free From Desire at the end of the semi-final. Should we win on that day, that would be really fantastic. So I'm a little bit 50-50 about it. I think a venue that can accommodate the most fans should really be the venue for the semi-final and the final. But there's not really anywhere else, is there? So I'm kind of with the minority there that I'd happily see as many fans going to see the semi-final as possible. And if that has to be at Wembley, then kind of so be it. But there you go.
Yeah, I'm a bit like both of you. I'm kind of in the middle. I do kind of feel like a semi-final shouldn't be at Wembley, but like Coventry last year, that we wouldn't have seen that if they weren't playing at Wembley. That special atmosphere. So yeah, it's another chance, isn't it, for a team to go that might not get to a final. And I think under normal circumstances that would probably be us. We wouldn't always get this far. Obviously, the FA Cup this year is very, very open, and we're arguably. This is another thing I want to do. I think we're arguably one of the favourites in terms of where we're ranked. Because we are the highest ranked team in the competition, which is crazy.
The bookies have got us at like in the relegation zone regarding rankings and stuff. I think we're like just above Preston.
Brilliant. Doesn't shock me that.
No.
It's only in terms of league position, of course. I think Man City would obviously be the hot favourites, but
we're Nottingham Forest. Never tell us the odds.
Exactly. Yeah. But more fairly, and knowing what the bookies say, where would you actually realistically say we are in terms of likelihood? Because I think City would probably be first. Obviously, got Villa in it. Are we after those two? Is there anyone else that you'd consider? Because I think it's such an open tournament this season, and it's very refreshing.
Would you both fear Bournemouth in the semi-final?
That's the thing, isn't it? We are nemesis in Bournemouth. Probably.
At least we'll get 70,000 tickets, but
yeah, true. I'm not going to say anything to that if any unlikely Bournemouth fans are watching.
Yeah, we know what they're like on your channel.
No, I'm with you there, Rads. I think we're below those teams. I think primarily because of how well Brighton are playing. Ironically, since we put 7 past them, and how well they're playing at home since we put 7 past them. So I think the bookies are obviously looking at those and how sort of scattergun we are at a certain extent, and how inconsistent we've become since we played those games. So, but you can only play the opposition, and I'm not a betting man. I'm going on Saturday. I can't wait, and it's going to be a cracking game. I think they're going to come out and really kind of want to right some wrongs from that game, and it's going to be a cracker. I don't care about the odds. Let's bring them on, and we've got 3 games to a cup lift, so bring it on.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, more on the Wembley thing. Raddad making a good point that we could end up being at Wembley 3 times if you count the Community Shield. If we're to win the FA Cup, then it would be 3 visits in a few months, which would be surreal, honestly.
Amazing.
Zach kind of backing up other face Man City than Bournemouth, and I probably agree, honestly. We did beat Man City this season, and definitely not Bournemouth. So I actually think there's some logic behind that for sure.
I've just had a thought who we're playing in the Community Shield, and I don't think Arnie Slot would approve.
I mean, it'd probably find a way of blaming us if they were to lose, wouldn't they? Peter saying hit the like button. It's a very good comment, Peter. Thank you for reminding people. Please make sure you do that. It's also saying Brighton will want revenge. Absolutely, yeah. I think that definitely will play a part, actually. If Brighton aren't thinking about that game in some way, because that's the crazy thing about that match is Brighton are not a relegation team. They're in this European race as well, in a quarter-final of the FA Cup, and yet they lost 7-0. So I think they're going to want to prove a point, definitely. So another thing that I was going to ask as well is, what's more important now? Is it focusing on the FA Cup, getting a trophy, or is it cementing a Champions League place? Because obviously a trophy, it will guarantee us a European place, but do we want to go one step further and get into the Champions League, which obviously could be the top 5 this season? I've seen a lot of people have their say on this, so I think we should probably mention it here. What's the focus in your opinion, Glenn? What do you think?
I've been listening a lot about various other people, and obviously within groups and stuff talking about it. Honestly, I'm swaying from one side, which is let's focus on getting as high as possible or maintaining that position, pushing Arsenal for as long as we possibly can to maintain our position or attempt to catch them. Does that mean, with that focus, that we are prioritizing our squads for those games and potentially on Saturday putting forward a team that perhaps on paper would compete, but with a Brighton team that is pushing for the lower echelons of those European places, but not necessarily the heights that we are in, would perhaps want to throw everything possible at an FA Cup semi-final, because like you were saying, it's so open and there are so many teams in that group of 8 that haven't won it for years or at all. So they put themselves in one of those positions where they can really push towards getting an FA Cup semi-final, final. I work with a couple of Brighton fans. One in particular is saying that he really wants their Brighton team to get as far in the competition as possible, because he thinks they've got the legs on in the Premier League to maintain their position or push for the rest of those Europa League type places. However, I'm a man who is very much in Nuno we trust, and he's got this process where he's put us where we are, and he is one game at a time. He had the same mindset for Exeter than he would have had for Man City. He's got the same mindset for coming up against Brighton as he will have against Man U and all the way through to Chelsea on the last game of the season. So I'm very much in his hands in terms of believing that he has a plan, knowing who's going to play, knowing that we're going to prepare as well as possible and not see this game as being any more or less important because it's the next game. So if he's got that mindset, I'm very much with him that we're going to go as far into every competition as possible, the Premier League and the FA Cup. And let's not forget, we lost on penalties to the winner of the Carabao Cup. So he's going to push as far as possible to get himself as high up in both competitions, whether it be, I dare say it, and you can clip this, losing set quarterfinalists or winning quarterfinalists, and then we go 3 days, recover, in we go. He will know, with a lesser or greater extent, who is out on international duty this week and who he's working with. Whether that makes a difference on who he potentially chooses for Saturday or next Tuesday, only he will and his staff will know, because we don't know how much and how long Nico Dominguez was off on holiday, for example. To answer your question, I think I'm not a greedy man, both, but I think there is a focus, and there must be, on the Premier League, as much as he says very little about thinking way, way far ahead. Within the scope of what we've got and the squad we've got, I think the Premier League is probably the club's focus, and the FA Cup is a wonderfully positive distraction.
Yeah, I think that's a very good way of looking at it. Did think the club we were definitely looking at it, wanting both, but I think we will probably prioritise the league. I think most probably would. Only, again, I mean, you look at how open it is. There's lots of clubs here that wouldn't normally have a chance of winning trophies, who are going to be looking at it thinking, how often are we going to have such an open playing field against teams at a similar level or even a lower level than us? So, yeah, I think you wouldn't normally see, obviously us, then the likes of Fulham, Brighton in the mix to try and win a trophy. So this is why I think it's a really good FA Cup this year. But yeah, I'm sure the club is trying. Yeah,
Palace are playing really well as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, I definitely agree. They've got quite a good quite a good pedigree in the FA Cup in recent years. Palace getting to the semis and got to the final not too long ago either. So yeah, it's going to be fascinating to see what happens with that, and let's just hope that we're one of those teams that go through. I'll let Elliot. What's your take on this? Have you got anything to add on this?
I'm in Mr. Marinakis' camp of both. I do echo what Glenn says, but the thing is, we are a football club that are in competitions to win it, not just make the numbers up. So everything Glenn says, but that.
Yeah, pretty much. So yeah, just some comments on what we've been talking about. Hassan, Champions League would help us out financially as well. Definitely. Yeah, I'm sure you're going to see Marinakis probably go for it if we get any form of European football, but definitely Champions League. He's not going to hold back. And that's actually going to lead on to another topic, which is some of the transfer rumors we've been seeing already. I don't think we can really go into too much detail on them because it is ultimately nowhere near that time yet. But I'm sure we're going to see some pretty wild rumours. Patch saying, though, football's about winning trophies and not money. Yeah, I mean, it is unfortunate, I think, becoming more the latter these days. But, trophies is, I think, as we saw with Newcastle, it's going to make you want to win them, isn't it?
Actually, I do agree with Patch in the sentimental sense that, it is all about winning trophies, but not to the broadcasters. The broadcasters are absolutely hating this season because obviously the two of the big six are doing absolutely terribly in the lower regions of the Premier League, and the other three, apart from Liverpool, aren't really playing that good either. So I don't think the broadcasters are enjoying this, and I think something might be sorted out in the summer. I'm not sure what, but I've got a good feeling that they will try and aim for the top six to be in the first 2-6 positions.
Yeah. That's the thing, isn't it, with the top six, is how often do we actually see the top six be the top six now? Because it's been a very long time since the alleged big six were actually in the top six. But like you say, it is all just down to the broadcasters. I think Sky started that, didn't they, with the whole big six phrase. But yeah, I think it is just kind of what rules football now, unfortunately. But like we say, looking at potential Champions League, we've looked at some of the players we're linked with. I mean, Douglas Luiz was spoken about in January, as well as Mateus Cunha. Victor Osimhen is an incredible link. Victor Gyökeres I've seen, and Lutman from Atalanta. These are crazy to be being linked with us. I mean, who knows if any of those will, actually happen? But they're just some names that I just think had to be mentioned because it's just crazy to be talking about that. I mean, I wanted to actually talk about the Brighton lineup, but have you two got anything to add on what might happen in the summer window? Because it could be pretty hectic, couldn't it?
It could be, and obviously, obviously based on our finishing position, what we've got next year, and the significant increase in prize money that comes from the Premier League in the positions that we're finishing, it will give us a real sort of boost towards, as you were saying, Mr. Marinakis digging his hands into his already very, deep pockets and getting that checkbook out. Now, the things that you've been mentioning, it's just unlike any other situation in our recent history. We're all saying, Carvalho 13 million, and that's just such a enormous sums of money. And now we're talking about multiples of that, 50, 60 million on players that have been in the Premier League's top sort of quarter and are now, playing in Europe elsewhere and would be coming back into the City ground. It's just unreal to have these sorts of talents. And equally, players like Chris Rigg, Joe Bellingham, and these are the young talents which for me as a coach and a PE teacher, those sorts of young talents coming into our team and stretching their legs in, our sorts of positions where we would be next year are just such an exciting potential for our club. So yeah, the summer I will bet, I'll all of these rumors I'm going to hold. I'm very much Gary Marriott in this situation where he's, I'll believe it when I see the lights on and the player holding the shirt. But it is really exciting hearing all of these potential players that are coming into our team because of the position we're in and because of the quality of the staff that are making these bookings and these signings. So the recruitment team has proven over the last year, 18 months, on the whole, to be working and functioning really, really well. So I'm sure and I'm confident that based on our position and the amount of investment that we've got, we're going to choose some real quality to strengthen the team. And that's what we need, isn't it, going forward?
Yeah. I mean, we've already seen, multiple players come in that I think none of us ever thought would see play for Forest. I mean, Navas springs to mind, Felipe, even Lingard at the time was pretty wild. This season, the players that we've seen come in, that's mad enough. But, actually being at, Champions League level, it's crazy to even be talking about it. It's going to be an incredible window, isn't it, really, you'd think.
On that note then, obviously in the comments and you too, would we need to sell to strengthen as well as buy? And if so, this might not be the forum to do this, but who would we need to cash in on? Do we? And if so, great. But if we don't need to, that would be fantastic. If we do, who might it need to be? Do we think?
Good question, Matt.
Right. Yeah. So on that, every single team unfortunately has to sell. It's what this PSR lark is like. I think it will be one of our centre midfielders, but I'm not confident enough to actually give you a name. So it could also be the case of one of our fringe players just on the sly, like Mr. Marinakis, for example, will probably sell Jota Silva to Rio Ave, one of his other clubs, for 30 million to get around it or something. So to answer your question on that as well, like selling to buy, what's really important about this summer window is if we do get into Europe, I'm not saying we will, but I'm just saying it's very, very loosely if. We've seen over the seasons the likes of Brighton and Aston Villa get tired like midway through a season. So we do have a very small squad at the moment. And it's just a case of balancing the squad to not only fit cup competitions, but also the league, because we've seen over the years, like I say, for teams in Europe to fade a bit as soon as they've got further and further into Europe.
Yeah, I mean, that is a bit of a concern in a way, next season. It may affect us possibly. Like Villa haven't been as strong in the league this season, as you say. You've seen it happen. I seem to remember when Burnley got into Europe, they weren't really the same. So it can hit you, especially if you haven't been in there for a long while. And like we say, I think Marinakis is going to hopefully strengthen enough to allow us to try and compete in both. Because I don't see him being someone that's going to settle with us just being in Europe to make up the numbers. I think he'll want us to push it in whatever tournament it is, which that really, you just got to thank Marinakis for having that sort of ambition, which is amazing. Richard just saying we will finish second and win the European Cup. If that's next season, then bring it on, because I don't really know what to say to that if that was to happen. I'll take quite a while to process that. That's just crazy.
Glenn, was you old enough for the European Cup? I wasn't.
I was 4 and 5. One of my earliest memories was my twin brother and I holding an ear of the European Cup, probably aged about 3 or 4. Yeah. So I was, but my dad went. My dad went on a bus and went for a pee about 43 minutes just as Francis scored. Came up, heard the roar, got back on the bus again 2 days later, missed the procession because he was still on the double-decker bus coming back from Munich. And yeah. But no, I wasn't. I was old enough, but not enough to be there. But I'll be there this time.
It's crazy, isn't it? Crazy to be talking about this. Even of a very unlikely scenario, just to even be talking about it is mad. So yeah, this is what's been so incredible to be a Forest fan the last few years, and how far we've come. Dor saying hit the like button, and hello Dor, welcome. I think you've been here most of the stream, but how you doing? Yeah, anyone it's here, please get your comments in. Ask us any topics you think we should be talking about, any pressing subjects. That would be great. So yeah, well, I think we should just come back to this Brighton game. Obviously, it is the cup, so we may very well want to try and rotate. And I've actually got a very professional tactics board here. I've only really got it so I can put the lineup up that you two think we should play. Yeah. So I think you just basically tell me what lineup should we play against Brighton, and I'll just
not the one on the right. That they're all left backs, aren't they?
Yeah, that is the other team. That on the right, that's the other team.
And they're all playing right back.
Yeah, or on
left
that side.
back.
Yeah. But what we're thinking. Do you think we should go full strength, or someone like Wood? Do you think it would be the right decision to maybe not risk him in this game because of jet lag or obviously injury? Would you make many changes to what we've really been seeing recently, which is probably, again, ignore the right. That's not the actual team. That's just the rest of the squad. But is the left? Would you stick with that, or would you maybe make some changes, either of you? Because I think there's it's quite an open debate, isn't it?
Do you want to start, Elliot?
Richard Spray in the comments just went a team of Nicos, and that wouldn't actually be too bad, actually.
Okay, I can edit it into just team of Nicos. I think that would be good, I'd back it.
I think Awoniyi deserves a spot. But everything else I'm actually okay with.
You think Awoniyi?
Yeah.
Okay.
I think with Chris Wood's injury, let's not risk it.
I'd agree with that, to be honest. Other than that, yeah, I think you could maybe see a change in midfield, like maybe a Danilo coming in or Morato, but I wouldn't be surprised, if we were to go, pretty strong and not giving, Chris Wood any kind of risk of playing. Would you be any more radical, Glenn, or would you go with what Elliot's suggesting?
Yeah, no, I'm not too far away from there. Radical, probably a bit more pragmatic, perhaps. I'd probably look at those that have been playing over the last couple of days, week. Murillo may or may not, because he's playing Elliot this evening. Is that right?
Yeah,
he's playing at midnight at Argentina tonight. So
midnight.
Does deserve a start, to be honest.
Yeah, that's who I was going to potentially bring in instead. I was at the Luton game when Bolly played. I'm not sure about that partnership for this game, although they were fine for that game. I think Morato would be an ideal person to bring in there instead of Murillo. Milinkovic has been playing the last couple of days, but I think he would probably start ahead of Bolly. And I'm with you in the midfield. I'm not sure whether Dominguez or Danilo, because Elliot Anderson's been featuring. So I think I would look at those players and getting my Nuno head on Recovery, we check the players out when they come back, and then go from there. I think the situation at the back four is pretty solid, regardless of which we move in instead of Milinkovic. But I'm with you in terms of I wouldn't risk Wood, whether it be for the knock or not. I think Taiwo, I've been really impressed with the way he's been playing recently. He's looking really sharp. I've seen the videos of him working really hard over the last 10 days, 2 weeks. And I think he's, mask or not, Elliot, you're right about the broken nose. I think he's ready to really prove something for himself and the club, whether he gets a move or not in the summer. I think this is a real opportunity for him to stake his claim as being a bit more of a starter, a bit more of a player who doesn't just get the 8, 9, 10 minutes plus at the end of the game, and has a lot more to play in terms of the final 9 games plus the cups.
Yeah,
there would actually be another change to it, and I will tell you for why. There is no better player in world football than this guy in the springtime, and that is Danilo. I would put him in because he traditionally, as you know, have you seen, he normally does quite well against Brighton. He scored his first goal against them. I thought he was brilliant in the 7-0, like being that little pivot that they had. I know, granted, they didn't really have much of a midfield, but he was good in that game. So let's stick him in for, I'm going to say Dominguez.
Okay.
But I would bring Dominguez on because you know what we're like in cups. You know, we do need a strong bench.
Yeah. I think, Danilo, he did come on in the Luton game, and I think he played in the Exeter match as well.
He did.
I think Yates has started every cup game, so I could possibly see him coming in, but maybe it's because Yates does still play pretty much every game. Maybe Danilo is a case of fitness. He's probably still not completely 100%. Is
Sangare on international duty?
I was just
yes,
he is. I was just about to say that. Every time you said maybe Rads, I was expecting you to say Sangare, and you said somebody else.
Well, yeah,
he's on international. He's on international duty. Might he feature off the bench? I don't know if he'll start. I think you're right there, Elliot. Danilo does have this habit of coming on and making huge impacts I remember the Southampton game in the first season, towards the end of the season, played phenomenally well, and also that first goal for the
game as
well
well,
that he scored at Brighton. Yeah. Good point.
Yeah, he does come alive when the sun comes out, doesn't he, Danilo? So, hopefully he can keep doing that. I mean, I think he's been good all season when he has obviously missed the first half of it. But since he's come back, I think he has looked very lively and sharp, saying he's been, had such a bad injury. I do think the international break does play a part potentially, just looking at that team, Morata and Awani are there, probably only because of the internationals with Murillo and Wood. If we weren't off an international break, would those two start, and then it's basically a full strength team? I think there's probably a good chance of it. Or you do just make one change in midfield. So again, would Sangaro have come in if it wasn't an international break? It's hard to say, but I do think these players down here like Toffolo and Bolly, Moreno, it's unlikely you're going to see those. Toff obviously played at centre back in the Luton and Exeter game, and did well actually. It's saying it's not his position, but I think it's probably very unlikely you'll see it be rotated to that level. But yeah, I think what you both suggested is probably about what you'd expect to see, really. Maybe these two coming in. If you got anything else to add on that team?
Who of those left over do you think would be the finishers? The most likely to rotate and to sub in for those that are on there. Bearing in mind we're looking at Milinkovic, who would have played some minutes in the last few days. Who else do you think might be those that would perhaps be the Morato third centre half, for example? Would that be a Bolly? Would that be a... I'm not going to suggest putting a Toffolo in there for the final few minutes against the roaring Amex crowd. But who do you think might well be the rotate?
A bit risky. I mean, if Murillo's available, you could see Murillo coming in just towards the end, possibly. That's if he doesn't start the game. So possibly that if you were to go and play a back three. But I'd probably say Yates and Jota would be a likely shout because those two tend to come on in matches. Jota in particular.
Yeah, Jota for the two Brighton games that we played this season has actually scored against them from the bench. So that's an option.
Yeah. I do feel, I think it's probably a player we could talk about is Sosa, because I do feel a bit bad for him that he has kind of just been shoved out, hasn't he, of proceedings. And I think whenever he's played, like that Everton game where he's only starting the league, and that was last minute.
You should see the Instagram comments when the team gets announced. There's just Sosa fans going absolutely balmy that he's not starting over Callum Hudson-Odoi. And for the last two games, which we've actually won, I have been arguing with a few of them, and I've actually found it quite funny. But I do feel bad for Sosa. Honestly, I do. It's just that I think he was brought in to be one of the Premier League's like lower half team kind of wingers that we bring on for Callum Hudson-Odoi. Whether he'd come on for Europe is very, very debatable. He might work, he might not. But he's a young man. He'll improve. But the thing is, if you've got a player like Callum Hudson-Odoi, you're not really going to get a start in front of him, are you?
No. I do agree with that. I think he's arguably been a victim of our success, hasn't he, Sosa? I think if we were towards the bottom end again, he probably would have done a lot better, I'd say, because just having to be at such a high level compared to what he probably expected to be coming into. I mean, I'm sure he's happy with how the club's doing, but it's probably really made his chances less with how well, obviously, Callum and Elanga have played. It's unfortunate, really, and it's probably one that you could see leaving, like we were saying earlier. Who may we have to sell in the summer to make funds? I could see someone like Sosa possibly going, to be honest, because you could probably get a decent fee for him from maybe going back to South America or into Europe, which is a shame, really, because I think that there's clearly a player there. I just want to say I've not been ignoring the comments. I've just been looking at the tactics thing. Richard from America. Hello, Richard. Welcome.
Hi, Richard.
Forest. Absolutely. Just a couple of opinions on the team. I would bench Murillo. He is making his debut against Argentina. In the early hours, it would take him out mentally. Yeah, like we said, it's. I think there's a good chance Murillo won't play. I think we saw in that Arsenal game at the Emirates, we didn't play Chris Wood because he'd just come back from New Zealand. So it does happen. And I could see it, especially in a cup game, and especially because he had a knock. You could see him being rotated out. I think Peaches means the fact that the right-hand side is meant to be another team. It's both teams are very good. I agree, totally. I just had to put them somewhere. And another comment saying I think Murillo will be jet lagged. I'd have to agree. Well, he will be, won't he? Elanga came on the last 20 minutes in Sweden's friendly. Scored 5 minutes after coming on. It's good that Elanga's actually back in the Sweden team because he wasn't in the last couple. So that's good to see him back in. And just another comment on Hudson-Odoi. I think we're talking about Sosa not starting over Hudson-Odoi, I get, but I do prefer him to Jota. It's a shame because I think he has potential. Yeah, And if we're low in the table, I think that's definitely the case with Sosa, unfortunately for him.
Okay, so about the I'll let you go. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so Nico's playing tonight against North Macedonia. That's just another thing. Yeah, go ahead, Elliot.
Yeah, I was going to say the Jota and Sousa debate. They're absolutely brilliant going forward, but I both personally think that obviously we're a very defensive team, and they both really like to potentially get a start. They really need to work on their defensive games. The Spurs game, for example, at home, I saw Ryan Yates go absolutely balmy at Jota because he was not. He wasn't helping Olaraina at right back. So he kind of had a word with him, like, please just help him out because we need to win this game. So in order for Jota and Sousa to potentially get nods, get off the bench, they've really got to work on their defensive games.
Yeah, I think that's very true. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with what you're saying as well, Rads, about both of their fortunes in terms of Forest. If we were a team that was crawling up and perhaps meeting the expectations of some of our fan base who were saying, like I was, that we would be in the sort of high teens, low single digit finishing positions, then there'd be an ideal position and place for them perhaps for another season to play in what would be Carabao Cup, FA Cup type roles like they were against Exeter and Luton and the early stages of the Newcastle Carabao Cup. But now we're in a position where we're looking to strengthen that team even more. You're right. I think we're looking to increase our standard a little bit, and whether they would be seen to be on the outskirts of that, and whether we would be better off looking at other quality players that we could move into those different positions and perhaps bring into the European team now at that position would be probably the most appropriate. Although you're saying, Elliot, our squad is relatively thin compared to others, I don't know whether it's worth keeping hold of those for the likelihood of what, half a dozen games perhaps a season. That's not going to keep them interested in the team, and they're going to be probably better off going elsewhere. I agree with that point. Absolutely.
Yeah. I do think it's just it is unlucky, really, with Sosa and Jota, particularly Sosa. And I suppose when you've got four wingers, you are going to get one of them that's not really going to play all the time, because especially if they're in form. And you saw last season, it was the opposite. It was just really, obviously, it's Doyle and Alanga. And, I think at times, those two last season, they weren't as consistent as this year, and we needed something else. And this year, I do think, we've seen Jota come on in most games. It has offered us something different. But it was unlikely that we're all going to get a fair share of minutes, really, wasn't it?
Yeah.
So, I think the most important thing to discuss now, really, is the rest of the season. So 9 games to go. There's 5 at home and 4 away from home. And I did a video last week actually looking at the running. And we've actually got only 2 of our European rivals to play in, Villa and Chelsea, and that's away from home at Villa and, of course, at home to Chelsea. It is quite a nice run in a way. I'm not going to say the word winnable.
Don't.
Elliot will not like me.
It's an absolute pet peeve of mine, that word. Some of you know another
But besides those 2, obviously there's still...
We beat Liverpool and City this season, people. All games are winnable. Sorry, Rads.
Exactly. I do agree. Obviously, there's United and Spurs in there, but they're mid-table sides this season. But I don't think you can completely discount them. But don't think you're going to like this comment either from Patch.
Yeah, I've just seen. Thank you, Patch.
9 free hits.
Everyone knows how to wind me up. Free hits.
Yeah. But I just wanted to get from you both a little prediction, maybe how many of those do you think we might win, or just the rough estimates? Obviously, besides those, it's Everton and Brentford and Leicester at home, and then Palace and West Ham away from home.
Can I have a bit of a take on Leicester, by the way?
Go for it.
I think this would be, it's just for humour related purposes only, if any Leicester fans are on here. Can you at least please wait until May, until your big day out to get relegated? Because we just think it would be so funny on your big day out that not only we send you down, but we potentially hit the sweet spot to hit Champions League. So that would be another wonderful thing to our season, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I mean, with 3 games to go, there's a good chance that could be the game. Only looking at the bottom 3, there's a good chance that they'll be down by then. But it would be good if it happened at the same time, wouldn't it? I forget how many points I said we would get. I think I said 19. So that's just like a rough estimate, maybe, of what we could get. Yeah. So what was I saying? How do you see it going really with that run of games? Because I think it could be a lot worse, honestly, and how it might affect our final league position. Either of you, Glenn?
I think the fact that we've come through a really tough patch and we didn't really anticipate much coming from that. Obviously, the City game gave us an incredible three points in a team that we've not really got much out from, other than that 1 point when Wood scored on his home first goal, wasn't it? Two seasons ago. Now we get a situation where we've played everybody else and got 3 points out of everybody except for Chelsea, who we play on the final game of the season. I think 19 is a really solid number to go for, Rads. I think I'm going between 17 and 19. In fact, I take way NFFC's point about Villa being a real banana skin potentially. From then on, we could well go unbeaten for the rest of the season. I think that's a really optimistic target for the rest of the season, being that Chelsea by then may or may not have had a pickup to their season. They may be in that run-in for those 5. I think they are on the edge of being in those Champions League places, sort of 5th or 6th by the end. And for us to maintain our position, or at least pick up on Arsenal, we need to get as many points out of those games. Villa being a real tricky one. So Villa away is always difficult. I've been there both times in the last couple of seasons, and we've not really played particularly well, although we've scored strange goals. I think Gibbs White's goal last season was phenomenal.
Yeah.
There have been others that we've really competed there, but we've not really been able to get it across the line there. Remember the 5-5, those Forest fans remember that day. But we've got a real following that game.
Last season was a game we played near Carte at left back, and everybody went balmy because it was terrible there. So
and I see
your point about that.
And he scored off his shoulder or whatever, wasn't it? No, I think the Villa game is going to be really tricky. From then on in, we've got games that you could argue 9 cup finals, including potentially a cup final, to really go and get as many points as possible. We need, I think, before the United game, to maintain those Champions League places. I think we need 12 to 15 points. Any more than that is going to consolidate our position, or even start to take a chunk out of the lead that Arsenal have got over us. But I'm very optimistic that we'll stay in those Champions League places because of the way we're playing. If we can keep all of those players fit, and by all accounts, they've come back. Most of them would with a knock, but most of them are playing well without too many issues. So yeah, I'm really hopeful, crystal ball out, that we're going to get 15 to 18 points from the next 9. So let's hope so. 2 points a game will be enough for us, I think.
Yeah,
that's the best date ever, by the way. 9 cup finals, including the cup final. That was absolutely brilliant, Glenn. Thank you for that.
I mean, it is legitimate, isn't it? Yeah, we will actually possibly be in a cup final, and there's 9 cup finals in the league. So, yeah, never heard a truer statement, really. I do agree that I do think Villa could be arguably the hardest game left. really. I think away from home, I know we've beaten them already, but I know Villa aren't, consistent in the league this season, or at least recently. But that's it's a place that I don't really know why I'm concerned in a way, because we went on an 8-game winning run, and we went to grounds that we hadn't won at, so we shouldn't really fear it in a way. But maybe the Bournemouth and Newcastle games have just kind of given me flashbacks of bad days away from home. But overall, it's obviously we've won and beaten a lot of teams that we hadn't beaten already in previous games. But I do think it's looking pretty good, really, with that running. And Peter's just saying about Leicester, I think most of them will mathematically want to be down, so that doesn't happen, that scenario. I mean, they probably will be by that stage. Villa will have to make changes. There's a Brighton away on Wednesday night, and PSG a couple of days after us. A lot of games for Villa, and I think that Champions League game is going to be a big focus, because they're in dreamland, of course, to be that far in, and let's just maybe see if we can do something like that next season. But we're a long way off that. And I've spoken about the run-in, but where's your final league position? I just want to get a number from you both. Obviously, we're in third, and we've got a little bit of a cushion on fourth. Do you think we'll stay in third, or do you think you might drop off a place or two? What we're thinking?
You go first, Elliot.
All right. I think we'll finish third, but let's aim for second.
I love that.
If we do as well as I hope we will, and get those 2 points a game, second is absolutely on the cards still. Arsenal got a tough few games in the next few, and that might be enough for us to catch them.
Crazy.
I think third would be my choice, though. I think third would be my choice. I think we're going to run them really close, but I think we're going to maintain that gap to fourth, and third will be, as hopefully by the time we play Leicester. That will be phenomenal, wouldn't it?
I think we've been third since we beat Spurs, I think, or at least obviously we went second when we beat Everton briefly. I think since
third since we played third. We were fifth before we played Spurs, and third since.
That's an achievement in itself. Like, we've been third that long, and there's now approaching the final stretch. Who would have thought that we could not just be in the chase for Europe, but have a little bit of a cushion in this battle, and then be one of the highest ranked teams in it. It just makes it more surreal, really. Everyone in the chat as well, just get your predictions in league position. That would be interesting. Raddad saying third and win the cup. I mean, that just would be surreal, is an understatement. That would be just phenomenal, wouldn't it? Door approving of your prediction, Elliot. I think absolutely third and aim for second. I don't think it's at all off the cards. I think it's probably unlikely we get second, but it's definitely a possibility, especially with how Arsenal are obviously been far more inconsistent this season. But we'll end it there, I think. Thanks everyone for being here. Appreciate it. Obviously haven't streamed on the deadline day. We'll do a stream probably end of the season, doing a roundup, I'm sure, or maybe before then. We'll see. But thank you everyone for being here. Appreciate it. Thank you for Glenn and Elliot. I just want to let Elliot say his facts, and then we'll round off.
Why are you all here, isn't it? It's my birthday tomorrow, so I thought I'd do I've been researching birthday facts all day, and the best one I found is this. There is a tradition in the west and northern parts of Germany where if a man is unmarried on his 30th birthday, he has to dress like a woman, sweep the steps of the local town or village hall, and is only freed when he's kissed by a virgin.
Right. Wasn't expecting that, but that's one of your facts as ever. Thank you for that.
Happy birthday
Elliot.
for tomorrow, Elliot.
Thank you very much. I'm 41.
Brilliant. Happy birthday for tomorrow, Elliot, and thank you for being here. Don't know what to say to that. And thank you, Glenn, as well. And yeah,
Pleasure, always.
up the Reds. See you soon, everyone. Up the Reds.